Welcome to Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, the program that examines what the church teaches and why. Faith with Reasons.
Well, welcome to it. Glad you could join us for Faith with Reasons here on this Wednesday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And, you know, we've got a terrific guest to join us today. We're looking forward to having a wonderful conversation with a wonderful guy. In fact, as he sits down and puts his headphones on, I got to introduce myself to him because I don't know him too well, and I've heard a lot of rumors about him. But he's an established author, and we're looking forward to chatting with him about a wonderful book. You know what that book is? It's called Faith Over Fear. Dave Vacheresse is in the studio. Hello.
Ron, it's so interesting to be on the air with you. I've heard such good things about you and how wonderful you are at interviewing. And I'm looking forward to the experience. So many people in Catholic radio world talk about their experience of being on the air with you, and I've always wondered what that might be like.
Yeah, I know. It's
yeah.
I don't know. We don't often sit and chat in a studio after 9 o'clock in the morning.
No, right. Yeah, we sit and chat, but not in the studio. Yeah, but it's good to be here before it's dark. You know, right now coming in as the show begins tonight. It's light out. Normally we're here. It's still a little bit dark, getting light, so a little bit of a different experience there. You're sitting in your chair. I'm sitting in my chair. Nothing different about that.
Switch places, I think.
Yeah, right.
Just to be different a little bit. But
I'm excited about this, though. Excited about talking about the book. Excited about talking about this special event that's coming up to honor Mother Angelica and the 100th anniversary of her birth. I keep calling it a birthday, and I said that to someone and said, she's not alive. It's just no, she's not alive. So it's formally the anniversary of her birth, but we're going to have a birthday party anyway.
Absolutely. So, yeah. There's always a great opportunity.
She is alive, by the way. In fact,
she's alive in our hearts, and she's alive on our airwaves each and every day.
And alive
about 500
eternity.
Stations or so around.
Yeah.
So
amazing. The work that she began in 1981, the official beginning of EWTN. In fact, we celebrate an anniversary with them. August 15th is when they were born, August 15th, 1981. Us, August 15th, 2010, but the anniversary date the same. So easy to remember. The Feast of the Assumption is the birthday for each of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to talk a lot about faith over fear.
Yeah.
And there are some wonderful experiences that you have put down, cast pen to paper, and shared with us all. But before we go too far, I want to talk, because a lot of folks have gotten this book in the mail.
Yeah.
Many people who have supported us over the years and at spring share-a-thons and fall share-a-thons and so forth. We always send a newsletter out. And in this particular spring share-a-thon coming up, you've actually included a copy of your book.
Yeah.
To all of those folks. So folks are just getting them now, which is, I think now is a very timely time to have you in studio to talk about that. But I want you to talk a little bit about an event, this 100th birthday party that we're throwing. It's a pre-share-a-thon event, and it's coming up on April 27th.
April 27th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Going to be taking place at the Pinnacle. Big dinner, big birthday party for Mother Angelica. We've got some incredible speakers who will be with us that night. Father Joseph Wolf, who is known to many of our listeners. You'll hear him celebrating Mass at EWTN very often, but also hear and see him celebrating Mass on EWTN. But also a series host as well on EWTN. Now they're doing the Mother Angelica Live Classics, where they play parts of a particular Mother Angelica program. But then Father Joseph and Doug Keck will talk about that program both before it, during it, and after it, and bring a little more light to it. And what we find with Father Joseph, and I say this with absolute certainty, is there's no one outside the monastery, outside the nuns themselves. There is no one who encountered Mother Angelica more often than Father Joseph Wolf. He was there beginning in 1983, so not that, or 1985, I'm sorry, not that long after EWTN began. And then he was the first person to join that religious order as well. He went from being an engineer at EWTN to joining the religious order for men, and now is ordained. He was actually in charge of that religious order for a number of years as well. And he and I we're in there together. In
I was
fact,
going to say, you go back a long ways with him, and actually at one point you were discerning a call.
Yeah, I spent a couple of years in that religious order discerning the call. And actually, he had a lot to do with my future, where I ended up going and all that, because Father Joseph literally said to our superior and to Mother Angelica, either he goes or I go. And so, no, I'm just kidding. I love Father Joseph, and so we've known one another for all these years, and I can't wait for him to speak, because here's the thing. He might not be as well known as some other, major Catholic speakers, but he is engaging, and he's going to tell stories that no one else can tell about Mother Angelica. One thing that I am absolutely certain of is if you come and attend this, you're going to be going away talking about the things that you learned from Father Joseph that night about Mother Angelica. When I hear him speak, he tells stories I've never heard before, and they're moving. I mean, they are things that aren't in anybody's book. They're his life experiences. He's not hearing these things from someone else. These are things that he encountered in his own relationship with Mother Angelica. Now, my book is about my own encounters with Mother, but his, quite frankly, are more extensive than that, and so I can't wait to hear his presentation. Jack Williams, the general manager of EWTN Radio, will be speaking that night as will our own Bishop Daniel E. Thomas will be making a presentation there as well. So it's going to be an incredible evening. You don't want to miss it. You can sign up now. Space is limited. We're having dinner. So, when you start putting people at tables to eat dinner, all of a sudden venues shrink in as far as how many people you can get in there. So you'll want to go to our website as quickly as you can, RSVP to join us for this incredible evening, April 27th from 6 to 8:30. You can find out more about it on our website and sign up to attend, AnnunciationRadio.com.
And this is going to be at the Pinnacle, correct?
At the Pinnacle on April 27th, at the Pinnacle in Maumee, April 27th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So if you've attended any of the events that we've done since I've been here, I always try to keep them to 90 minutes. This is 2.5 hours. But I will tell you it's 2.5 hours because we are giving plenty of time to eat dinner with not a word spoken. Let people just kind of enjoy themselves at the table. Of course, our speakers will be coming around saying hello. You and I, Ron, will be coming around saying hello to all the folks.
I plan to be filling water glasses.
Yeah, right. But the big thing is we wanted to give enough time for people to enjoy that time of just sitting there and eating, then eat dinner, then we have the presentations, and then we're having a big birthday cake. So then it's time for the actual birthday party for Mother Angelica. So we're giving ourselves plenty of time. That's a Thursday evening. Starting at 6, we will be out there, out the doors by 8:30. Everything will be concluded and get you home, get you to bed at a decent hour as well. Now, that's about to creep up on my bedtime, but I'll make it happen for one special night only. Again, April 27th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. It's going to be one of those events, I promise you. It's going to be one of those events that people talk about for a very long time, and you really want to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you have been to previous events that we've done, the one thing you probably have noticed, we start on time, we end on time.
Oh, yeah, we will do that.
And a lot of times these things get out of control, and you get off the schedule a little bit, and you still have a lot to get to, so everything gets pushed and pushed and pushed, and suddenly, you're about 40 minutes past.
Yeah,
and that doesn't happen with us. It's very
We're not going to be late. We'll be serving dinner on time. We've scheduled enough time for that to happen. Our speakers will be timely. They'll be fabulous. And, you just don't want to miss the evening. Now, this is what I think about this, too, because Mother Angelica, we're marking the 100th anniversary of her birth. What is the next big anniversary that you mark? It's 125. So that's a ways down the road. There's a postulator who's been assigned for Mother Angelica's cause, but there's no indication that this one's going to be a quick St. Teresa of Calcutta kind of thing. Yep. So we might be waiting quite a while before there's another major marker in the life of Mother Angelica. So this is a big one. The 100th anniversary of her birth is worth marking, a wonderful way to celebrate her life, an incredible way to celebrate her impact. And I just hope you'll join me.
Absolutely.
It's important to me. I know it's important to a lot of other folks. I know she is dearly beloved by so many in our listening audience and the ones who are coming we couldn't find a better slate of folks to talk about her.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, this is a great way to kind of usher in what I'll call a year of Mother Angelica as we celebrate her 100th anniversary of her birth. This is something that we're going to carry on as a theme into our Share-a-thon, our fall Share-a-thon coming up in May. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I know you want to get to the book, Dave, but I'm really excited about the opportunities that people will have for a couple of a small pilgrimage and a big pilgrimage.
Oh, yeah.
And the big one is in honor of her 100th birthday, a VIP pilgrimage to EWTN and the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament in Huntsville, Alabama. I've been there. It's just a beautiful, prayerful place. And it's not the kind of thing you can take in just one day. So this one will include, since you spent so much time with EWTN and so many contacts there, we're going to be able to see places. I mean, anybody can go there and take the tour, walk around, and so forth. But we're going to take you into some exclusive places, see things that most people don't see, and get some special VIP attention.
Yeah, and thanks to Jack Williams, who's the general manager of EWTN Radio. We did this once before, and boy, did he treat our guests incredibly well, coming back with wonderful stories. We're doing this again. EWTN puts you up. The winner will be put up with the person of their choice, so 2 people going, and they will be put up in EWTN housing right there on the grounds of EWTN. They'll be eating in the EWTN VIP dining room. So if you're going to be a special guest at EWTN Live with Father Mitch Pacwa, you're going to be eating in the dining room with Father Mitch Pacwa and his guests for that night. I mean, there's just one executive kind of dining room that they have there where they cook for their guests, where they cook for the folks who are on the air. And so you'll be a part of that. So it's an incredible opportunity. 4 days, 4 nights there at EWTN housing, incredible VIP treatment. Then you head over to Huntsville, where the monastery that Mother Angelica built is, and you'll spend a couple of nights there as well. And again, that treatment will continue. Just a fabulous, fabulous trip. We can't wait to get our winners there and hear back from you about how much you enjoyed it. But the greatest thing of all comes back to how well EWTN will treat our winners. We know we have experience with this. It's an absolutely spectacular opportunity. And all you have to do to qualify, give a gift of any amount. Doesn't matter what the amount is. As soon as you give that gift, you are qualified to win this trip. And this is the great equalizer. If you give $10, you have the same chances of winning that trip as someone who gives $1,000. Your name gets entered one time, and we will pull a winner from all of those participants. And somebody and the person of their choice is going on this trip, and I know that it's going to be a trip of a lifetime. And
does that start on the first day of Share-a-thon?
No, that starts right now. That includes every gift that comes in for this spring campaign. So the spring campaign consists of this newsletter that is hitting mailboxes now. It'll also apply to all those who are at the event itself, the celebration of the birth of Mother Angelica on April 27th. Everybody who gives there will be entered in, as well everybody who gives during the Share-a-thon. At the Friday at 6 p.m., May the 19th, the last day of Share-a-thon, that Friday, that last gift given before we turn the mics off, that person will be included, and then we will close that off and then pick the winner the following week.
That's
live
awesome.
On the air, live on Morning Offering with Ron and Dave.
So, and that'll be you and a guest, a VIP pilgrimage at EWTN and the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament in Alabama, and that's a gift of any amount.
Gift of any amount qualifies you. Yep.
And then I mentioned the other pilgrimage, which we've done in the past. We've taken two bus loads actually to Canton, Ohio, Mother Angelica's hometown. Right where Rita Rizzo was born and raised and had her healing and so forth and received her calling. And that's going to be a special thank you to all of our apostles who give $100 a month or $1,200 as a one-time gift. In addition to having your name entered into the EWTN VIP pilgrimage, you'll also be entered into a drawing for the Mother Angelica hometown tour of Canton. Now, the one thing that
no drawing there, you qualify.
Oh, you just qualify.
100%. Yep, everybody who gives at the apostle level has the opportunity to go. 2 people, again, they and themselves and one person of their choice, going to Canton, Ohio.
So every apostle goes?
Every apostle goes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And if you're at the founder level, too, you go.
Anything $100 a month or more, or $1,200 or more as a one-time gift, you are going to Canton with us. We can't wait for that trip. Many of you went last time. Since you went the last time, there's a new addition. The Mother Angelica Museum has been opened. Barb Gaskell overseeing that as well. She oversees the Catholic bookstore there, as well as Catholic radio in Canton, Living Bread Radio. But she has opened this museum, and it's fabulous. Not only things from Mother Angelica, but also things from Rhoda Wise, who's now servant of God, Rhoda Wise, and that continues. Her cause continues to move down the tracks as well. So we go to the home of Rhoda Wise, which is where Mother Angelica was healed as a child, as a young person. That kind of led to her vocation. So anyway, lots of great opportunities there. We'll be taking one bus twice. So to accommodate people's needs regarding dates, and then I'm sure how many people we'll have. We'll fill up one bus for a particular date, and then we'll pick another date that works for everybody, and we'll take another bus.
So what a great way to commemorate the 100th birth anniversary of Mother Angelica.
Yeah.
Than to take a bunch of people to Canton, to her hometown, to the church she was baptized in, the monastery she made her final vows in.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Rhoda Wise's home and the fabulous Mother Angelica Museum, which I have not seen yet.
Yeah, and when you go to Rhoda Wise's house, and anybody who's gone to this, anybody who went with us the last time will remember this. There's a chair in the room where Rhoda Wise spent her time. Rhoda had, she had the wounds of Christ. She had the crown of thorns. She spent a lot of time bedridden because of her health issues. But anyway, the church is moving her cause forward. But she would sit and converse with the Lord. And when the Lord came to see her, he would sit in a particular chair. And I don't know that I've experienced anything more moving than sitting in that chair.
Absolutely. Sitting
in that chair that Jesus would sit in and visit with Rhoda Wise. It's called the Jesus chair. And I would tell you, it's worth the trip all by itself. So we're looking forward to that. I know that that's a very impactful opportunity for everybody as well. So again, that is a given. That's not a drawing, but if you give at the apostle level $100 a month or more, or $1,200 or more as a one-time pledge, you get 2 seats on that bus, and we hope to see you there. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Even the trip itself, driving there and driving back, singing and just having a good time. Those who went on the trip before, I'm sure, will testify to the fact that in itself was a good time. Maybe
it's
I wouldn't
fun,
say the ride
the
back.
bus runs along.
Everybody's tired,
and then you get a little punchy, and then somebody will go up and they'll like sneak up on the driver, and like pounce.
Try to scare him, and then we swerve, and
then we laugh and laugh and laugh.
Yeah, right. No, we won't be doing that.
We won't be doing that. But while you're in Canton, you'll be able to visit the fabulous Mother Angelica Museum, and as you mentioned, there is a Catholic bookstore. There at the radio station.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful facility.
The Holy Family Center?
The Living Bread Radio and the Holy Family Center. And
the
then
bookstore.
The bookstore as well.
And the bookstore has this book that I'm holding here in my hand.
Yep, they do.
On their shelves. And I understand they're selling is it waffles or hotcakes?
I'm not sure. I like snails, maybe. I don't know. But they're selling a few. So thank goodness for that.
It's a great read and a great eyewitness account of you kind of feel like you're kind of sitting across from Mother Angelica when you read Dave Vacheresse's stories. And I hesitate to even call them stories because they're not really stories. They're kind of witnesses.
Yeah.
There are, 26 chapters in here, and there are actually 26 stories in there, each depicting specific events relating to Mother Angelica, with Mother Angelica, about Mother Angelica. It's really lessons from his life with Mother Angelica. And I know this book kind of came together quickly, but it was a long process to get it together for this, right?
Yeah, and it's not a story that's told in the book, but it's how the book came about. So about 8 years ago, I really it was impressed upon me to write a book. And about my experiences with Mother, really about Catholic radio as well. I've traveled all over the country, served in various positions, building Catholic radio stations throughout the United States, in particular running EWTN Radio. And so it was just impressed upon me that there were stories that were worth handing down and maybe kind of an accounting history of the growth of Catholic radio across the country in addition to that. And so I sat down and I got excited and I wrote the first couple of stories. And then I just had, I had writer's block. I could not write anything else. I couldn't decide what stories to tell, what stories not to tell, what should be included, what shouldn't be included, what should the direction be, and all of that. And I struggled and I went back and forth and I really tried to come back to it on occasion, and I just wasn't having any luck at all. And this goes back some months, less than a year ago. I had a really incredible encounter with Pope John Paul I, who has really kind of become my go-to saint. I'll just tell you, I had a dream, and I was sitting cutting up, just having a great time with this Pope. And the dream goes back 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm just having the greatest time. We're laughing back and forth. We're having this conversation, and in my mind, even as I'm dreaming, I'm thinking, because it's during the pontificate of Pope Francis, I'm thinking, Pope Francis, but then I wake up and I think, well, that wasn't Pope Francis. I know what Pope Francis looks like, and that wasn't him. And then I kind of put it out of my mind. And a month or two later, I'm going by something, and I see a picture of Pope John Paul I. Pope John Paul I, who was venerable at that time. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's the guy in my dream. It was Pope John Paul I. And so I've always heard people say, saints pick you, and so I thought, well, maybe he's picked me. I would assume he's been assigned to me. He must have done something bad in heaven. He got assigned to me, or I got assigned to him, and he made it clear. And so I started kind of going to him for spiritual favors and that kind of thing, and just talking with him, conversing with him. And so I had a particular prayer request for my wife. My wife has some health issues, not dire ones, but chronic ones. And so I began to go to him for help with some of her chronic issues. And I was keeping track of it because he was venerable at the time. And then at this point he had already moved to blessed and now needed another miracle for canonization. So I thought, well, I will begin asking for his intercession, and I'll keep track every day, or with some regularity. I will keep track via text to myself of how many days in a row I've been asking for his help. So first day I wrote, day 1, asking now blessed John Paul I for his intercession for Eileen, my wife. Day 2, day 3, week 1, week 2, day 48. Day 57, and I did this every single day. I kept track of how many days I had been praying for his intercession. Day 100, day 200, day 300, day 517, day 517. And I would always do this on my way to work. And so I was driving from my home to our old office on Rugby Drive there in South Toledo on day 517. And I was doing the same thing. Blessed John Paul I, Albino Luciani. I love his name. Albino Luciani. I'm asking for your help, for your intercession for Eileen in this particular health need. And I hear stirred up in my heart, really, but clearly, no. And I went, what? No. And I thought, well, I didn't know that was one of the possibilities, that you could just say no. And then I thought, well, why'd you wait till day 517 to say no? You could have said no in day 7 so I could seek help elsewhere. But anyway, so I hear this stirring in my heart, no, ask me for something else. And I said, okay, help me with my book. I was, okay, and then I put that in front of him, and then as soon as I put that in front of him, I heard basically, the stirring in my heart was ask for help for Eileen from someone else. And it immediately was clear to me that I should ask Mother Angelica. So I asked Mother Angelica for the thing I had been asking John Paul I for, and we had immediate results with that. And as far as the book goes, after 8 years of struggle and 5 or 6 weeks, I had the entire book written, 26 stories, 26 chapters. Wow. And it flowed. I knew exactly what I was supposed to write. I knew what I was supposed to include. I knew how it was supposed to be laid out. It all came together. In 5 or 6 weeks, I completed a thing that I had tried to work on for 8 years with no movement forward at all. And with Albino Luciani's help, with Blessed John Paul I's help, I was able to complete it in 5 or 6 weeks. Wow. Now, I did document that. I sent it to the Vatican. They said, we've read your book. This is not a miracle. So, no, I'm just kidding. They did. But in any case, definitely, I love to give him the credit. One, because since when I realized that dream was about him, I began to read some of his writings and learn more about him. He only served as Pope for 33 days. That's what he's remembered for. Mm-hmm. But what a wonderful, magnificent man of God. Wrote children's books. I mean, this man was an evangelist. And when he became Pope, he took the name John Paul I. You know, it'd be like Francis saying Francis the First. They don't usually do that. No. He took the first, and then he had already said to John Paul II that he would be the next one. And John Paul II quickly followed, obviously. And then he took on the second.
Amazing.
But John Paul I, Albino Luciani, wow. I wouldn't have written this book without his intercession, that's for sure. And I appreciate the fact that he's willing to walk with me even today. He's not embarrassed to hang out with me.
Yeah, what an incredible story.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, you're rapidly running out. I mean, these things are selling out.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go into a second printing.
Yeah.
When you do that, I'd like to suggest that you add a 27th story.
All right, I'd love to do it.
And the title of it would be Day 517.
Day 517, I like it, yeah.
And tell that story in the book. That would be great.
That's good, yeah. I agree with you that story, again, without that story, none of the rest of it just doesn't exist. But without Mother Angelica, none of it is possible. And so I'm just thankful for the life that I've been able to lead because of my encounter with her at the age of 21 years old. 21 years old, I met her for the first time, changed the course of my life completely, and really sent me forward in a life of faith that I will never, ever, ever be able to thank her enough for.
That's awesome. And there's so much to get to in the book. And, you know, it's kind of funny how coincidence happened. Day 517. Usually, like when Donna asks me to do something around the house, she has to remind me.
Yeah.
And it usually about 517 times.
Yeah.
Before I actually, I meant to do that. I'm going to do that right now.
Remember that. Remember the Lord saying, how many times should I forgive? 517. No. 70 times, 7 times, which is not far off, 490.
Reminder a lot of, absolutely. All right. We don't have time before the break. The break music's going to hit any second now. But I want people to, if you got the book in the mail, I want you to go get it. And then we're going to go through it a little bit together
good.
During the second half of the show.
Yeah.
And maybe you can even kind of hope that we get to your favorite story.
Yeah, and I have one. Yeah. Good.
Terrific. All right, Faith with Reasons, author and radio host and Annunciation Radio president, David Vacheresse, our guest today on Faith with Reasons. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Hopefully you'll be here on the other side, and we can dig into the book, Faith Over Fear.
Hello, friends. Peter Range here, Chief Executive Officer of Ohio Rights Life, with an urgent update for you about an extreme and dangerous initiative. Planned Parenthood and the Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Rights have introduced a ballot initiative here in Ohio that would permit abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, eliminate any parental rights if you have a teenage daughter seeking an abortion or a sex change operation, and eliminate health and safety standards for women. Please visit Ohio Right to Life today at ohiolife.org to help warn Ohioans of this extreme and dangerous initiative.
This is Dr. Henry Russell. St. Augustine's HEP, Michigan's original and authentic Catholic classical liberal arts program, helping families educate for over 17 years. Catholic classical liberal arts education teaches how everything that is true fits into a clear image of God's universe and how He wants us to live in it. The wisdom of Christendom leads students to an integrity of intellect, holiness, morality, and emotion. From grades 1 through 12, meeting 1 to 3 days a week, St. Augustine's provides the backbone of true education. Spaces are open at our temperance site at St. Anthony of Padua Parish, as well as Ann Arbor and South Lyon. To learn more, visit staugustineschep.org or call 734-276-5629.
During this diocesan year of the National Eucharistic Revival, join us for a worshipful evening of prayer and Eucharistic adoration to enhance our understanding of, love for, and living out of the Holy Eucharist. The events run from Sunday, January 19th to Sunday, April 30th. Each event is from 3 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. To learn more, visit ToledoDiocese.org/Eucharist. That's ToledoDiocese.org/Eucharist.
Now, back to Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio.
Thank you for joining us. Shane Stanfield is on vacation this week and in a distant location right now, so he's not in studio right now. So he's missing out on what I hope will be a very memorable interview. The guy's kind of unpredictable, so we never really know. But Dave Vacheresse is in studio with me, my morning offering co-host, partner, and, of course, the president here of Annunciation Radio. We're talking about his book that's just come out recently, Faith Over Fear, and it's really lessons of his life with Mother Angelica. And as you know, he spent many years running EWTN Radio, started off running a camera focused on Mother Angelica, so had obviously daily interactions with the foundress of EWTN, and the book details many of those. I would imagine the toughest part of writing the book is keeping it to a limited number of stories because you got a million of them probably. But I kind of want to get into the book a little bit and starting at the beginning, really, because you even dedicate some time in the introduction as well as in the early chapters about your father and about your mother as well. So maybe you can take us kind of behind the scenes into the book a little bit and talk about your dad a little bit.
One of the most generous men I've ever met. Came from a very difficult background, but I watched as he forgave his own father for some very horrendous things, and I cover some of that in the book. And so I got to watch that witness. And witness of faith as well, both my father and my mother. But unfortunately, we lost my father when I was just 10 years old. He was just 39 years old, died of a heart attack. And so we left behind 7 children, ages 8 to 16, and 1 foster child. We always had a foster child in the home as well. So 8 kids in the house, and my mother, who was a stay-at-home mom, now all of a sudden raising this family on her own again, 7 children ages 8 to 16. So obviously that created some difficulty, and I cover quite a bit of that in the book. But one of the big things that occurred in the midst of this chaos, in the midst of this very difficult situation, is that a family that had been centered around faith kind of moved away from that center, In desperate times, it just became something that was not practiced for many, many years as I continued my growing up. And in the midst of that, you take on and make decisions on your own that create additional difficulties. And for me, part of that was engaging in activity that was not helpful in any way for a teenager. So at 16 years old, and way before that, but participating in, smoking marijuana. So I just say that straight out. And that had some very unintended consequences. And I cover that in one of the stories that I tell. A friend of mine and I would engage in small time selling of marijuana so that we would be able to have some. It was just for the purpose of being able to have some for personal use. And so we're at a drive-in theater outside Columbus, Ohio, I should say. And we're engaging in that activity. And then once we've kind of settled our business for the night, we enjoyed what was left. And then almost immediately after consuming that product, I had very, very kind of strange feelings come over me, experiencing some kind of going in and out of, I would say consciousness, but clear consciousness. Anyway, thought the best thing to do was to go home and sleep it off. I asked my buddy who was there with me that night, I said, are you having any strange reaction to anything? He said, no, all good. So, he went home and went to bed. I went home and went to bed. And as I was sleeping in my bed that night, I woke up to the most frightful thing I had ever seen, literally a demon standing at the end of my bed. And ugly, horrible, horrific, scary female, at least in female version. And I knew that there was something very serious going on here. And as I encountered her and had this experience that night, it literally changed my emotional, my mental state for 5 years. I became afraid from that point forward, anxious, suicidal thoughts, all kinds of just horrible, horrific results from that encounter that night, both from the experience with what I thought was a demon and then also from whatever was laced in that product that we experimented with that night. But it just had an absolute it turned my life upside down. And that's really where the faith over fear comes in, that later, as I was working with Mother Angelica and some others to identify some of the difficulties that I had experienced, that demon was identified as a spirit of fear that had become familiar with me, not possessed me, but familiar with me, and that I had succumbed to that in some ways for all those years, and that brought on that spiritual battle until December 8th, 1987. So that happened in 1982. That experience happened in 1982. December 8th, 1987, on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, I experienced the Lord for the first time in my life. I was introduced to him by his mother, by Mother Mary, and this story is told in the book as well. And that experience on December 8th, 1987, that miraculous intervention into my life, which happened again in Columbus, Ohio, is what really drove me to go down to Birmingham, where I met Mother Angelica, and my whole life was changed, and I entered the religious community that Mother Angelica had founded just a few months later, actually, February of 1988. And my whole life was set on a new course. And I spent those years with Mother and all the subsequent years following that, really putting into practice this faith over fear, knowing that he who is in us is stronger than he who is in the world. And I didn't have anything to fear because I was with the Lord. And I learned that from Mother Angelica herself, who had such a tremendous spirit of faith. Imperfect in many other ways, as she would say herself, but the most perfect specimen of faith I've ever seen in my life. Nothing moved her. She believed God would accomplish great things if she was willing to give herself over to it. And she didn't, I would say, she didn't have faith about it because she was so sure of it. You know, I don't have faith about breathing oxygen. You know, I'm sure that it's going to be there. That's the way Mother operated in her faith life. She believed God so strongly that I would say there was no faith required. She believed it absolutely. And I learned at her feet as a neophyte. I mean, I knew nothing about Christianity. I knew nothing about Catholicism. And here I was after this introduction, this miraculous intervention of the Lord. I'm at her feet 3 months later, learning about all of it. And so all of that is uncovered with a blank slate. I had nothing to get in the way. I just learned from her. And that's really what the story is about, is how I encountered this faith, this beautiful faith from this giant in the faith, this woman who trusted the Lord, who believed in the Lord, who was a spouse of the Lord. And I got to learn everything from her, and then kind of put all that together as I move forward in my years of walking with the Lord. And after having watched her do it, I watched her do it. There you go. There's the construction of that sentence.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's really what the book is about, is going from this absolute fear and self-annihilation and this idea of hopelessness and anxiety, and all of a sudden to this brand new opportunity where the light is shown before me, seriously in a miraculous way, again, which is covered in one of the stories, but then this introduction to Mother that takes this miracle and continues to add meat to it and bring me further and further along in the understanding of who God is and what he asks of us as well. And that's the rest of it that I've been uncovering for the rest of my life. I think Matthew Archibald wrote the foreword for the book, and I'm very thankful for him. And for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he writes for National Catholic Register, also has his own website, Creative Minority Report. He's on with us every Thursday morning on Morning Offering. But Matthew said, Dave, most people will write a book, and they'll talk about how they went from here to this beautiful place of conversion, and that's the climax of the book, and, wonderful, start off here, end up here. He said, your book is just like this continuation of, yes, I know the Lord, but I made this decision. Now I have to go in this. He said it's real. It is. I just tell the story as I've lived it, absolutely imperfectly, but standing on the shoulders of a giant, of Mother Angelica, and having that view, not because I had attained that position, but because she had, and the Lord let me be a fly on the wall, watching her as she loved him. And that was the thing. I got to watch her relationship with him and then enter in some degree, very minimal, but in some degree, enter into that same kind of relationship because it was modeled after watching her.
Wow. Faith Over Fear is the title of the book, and Dave Vacheresse, the familiar voice that you're hearing now, the author of that book, and really the author of his life, God has placed him in these places where not only do we get to experience EWTN, but Mother Angelica in a really intimate way. I mean, obviously, in the early days with EWTN, you're pointing the camera at her, and you kind of started off on the TV side, right?
Yeah.
And then moved to radio.
Yeah, so I'm a brother. I mean, I'm in the religious order. This is the early years of EWTN. It had just gone to 24 hours, so this is 1988. And early part of 1988. And Mother Angelica Live is a twice-a-week broadcast at that point, Tuesday and Wednesday. And we, the brothers, all of us who are in that religious community at the time, had just finished dinner. And we all of a sudden, the producer for Mother Angelica Live comes into our little dining area in our house and says, do any of you know how to run camera? We're like, everybody said no, but I had in my early life, I had run a Sears portrait studio, which is not really running camera. But I said, I've never run camera, but I did manage a Sears portrait studio. He said, that'll do. So he grabbed me and he took me over to the studio. He said, we're down a cameraman tonight. I need you to run a camera for us for Mother Angelica Live, and I'm going to show you how. So Fred shows me how to run Mother Angelica's camera, because that was the camera that didn't move. All you had to do was focus in on Mother Angelica, and she would speak directly to that camera. Other camera people were getting these wide-angle shots and doing all this, boom mics, boom shots and all this stuff. My job was to sit there, focus in at the beginning of the show on Mother Angelica, and don't move. And when she came to speak to the camera directly, she would be speaking to my camera. So he trained me to do that night, and I continued to do that. I continued to run camera for Mother Angelica Live all the way 5 years later when I joined the radio team. But I ran her camera, so the one that she looked at. So when she was looking out at the audience, when she was looking at you on the television, she was looking at me. She was actually looking dead-eye to me. I'm looking right at her. She's looking right at me, and she's going out to everybody from that position. So when she made those pronouncements, when she said those things on the air, she was literally saying them to me, and I was looking right at her as she said them, and I could see the countenance on her face. I could see her countenance change. I could see the Spirit come on her when she was needed to say something, when there was something dramatic that needed to be covered. I literally could tell that was all over her because she was looking right at me. And I thought, oh, my goodness, what is the Lord up to tonight? And it always was something special, I can tell you that.
Wow. And then you talk in the book about Curcio. You've got a story dedicated to Curcio.
Yeah.
Obviously, that played an important role.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I had actually, in October of 1987, I was living in Columbus, Ohio, running a small retail store there, and I really was separated from my family. I had made decisions that weren't healthy in any way, and I knew that they weren't good moral decisions.
Which is a familiar story for a lot of people. 21
years old, and I really wasn't comfortable being around my family because I knew I was not living the kind of life that my parents had raised me to live. And so I'd really separated myself from them. And so the only way that my mother could communicate with me was by calling the small store. I was running a KB toy store in a mall. Mm-hmm. And the only way she could contact me was by calling the store. She knew that's where I worked, but I didn't tell her where I lived. She didn't have any other access to my life. And she calls me, she'd call me with some regularity. On this one occasion, she called me and asked me if I wanted to go to a Cursillo in Birmingham, Alabama. And the one thing I would always do, I was like that son in the scriptures that always said yes and then never did it, you know. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll go. Just give me the information. And I happened to be in a place where I wasn't that happy with my living situation and some other things going on in my life. And I was making out the schedule for that particular time period when my mother had invited me to go down to the Cursillo. And I scheduled myself off. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'll go down. It'll get me away for a few days. It had nothing to do with a religious experience. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to get out of Dodge for a minute so I could think. And I went down to Cursillo in Birmingham, Alabama, where Mother Angelica was, but I didn't meet her at that time. This is October 1987. And that Cursillo literally shifted everything for me, though not completely. So I went down. I had a religious experience. I went to confession for the first time. I started to go back to Mass, but frankly, I was living with someone. I didn't change that arrangement. I got back. I kind of went back into my old habits, and then everything dramatically shifted December 8th, 1987. So just a couple of months later, but the priest who was the chaplain at that Cursillo continued to reach out to me after I went back to Columbus to check on me, and he knew things had gone a bit awry. And he was making a pilgrimage himself over to Medjugorje. And he said to me, Dave, I need to tell you, I'm going to Medjugorje, and I am going to put a stone in my shoe for the entirety of the trip. And I'm going to suffer just for you. And I'm going to be climbing up mountains. I'm going to be doing all kinds of things. But that stone is going to stay in my shoe. And I want you to know all of that suffering, I'm going to ask the Lord to give you grace to overcome your current situation through the suffering that I'm voluntarily taking on. And I said, no, please don't do that. That's crazy. Yeah. And he said, no, I'm doing it. I am going to do this. And through the entirety of this trip, I'll have this stone in my shoe. And that really impacted me. The fact that he would suffer for me in that way really impacted me and drove me toward wanting to make a decision to move in a different direction. And that really did lead to the miraculous event that happened on December 8th, 1987. So, which then moved everything else forward.
That is incredible. And it's a great to read and see these stories unfold. You know, because you can picture yourself, you can place yourself in that scene, as it were.
Yeah.
Put ourselves in your shoes. And really kind of receive some of those, or at least feel like you're receiving some of those same Holy Spirit moments.
Yeah, and if you have this idea that you're a bit thick-headed, if you are disgusted or in any way disappointed by the way that you've reacted to the grace that God has given to you to draw closer to Him, read the book. You'll find great consolation because I'm a thicker head than you are, let me tell you. And it took the Lord a lot more time to get through to me. And then it wasn't just this, okay, December 8th, 1987 happened, and then I meet Mother Angelica, then I join the order, and it's all roses and wonderful after that. No, he's having patience with me over and over and over again. Every story talks about moving in a new direction, recovering from an ill-advised direction, but always the faithfulness of God and the modeling of Mother Angelica that is present in so much of it. My favorite story. You asked me that, and I
realize that's a tough question because it's your story.
Yeah.
And how do you have a favorite occasion in your life?
Right. It's like having a favorite child, and I always say this. My mother has a favorite child. It's me, and there's 7. No, I'm just kidding. But in any case, I do have a favorite because it kind of encompasses all of it. I'm working at EWTN Radio and enjoying that part of my life, and there's an opportunity that kind of comes out of the blue. There's a gentleman from Nevada who wants to begin carrying EWTN radio programming on his local AM station. To that point, EWTN was only available on shortwave, and I worked at the shortwave station. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I'd gotten to the point. I talked with I discussed with my boss at EWTN Radio that I was going to have to leave. I had a financial need that EWTN just couldn't handle, and because I had a growing family. And so I'd already made the decision that I was leaving. I was already looking for some opportunities. And then all of a sudden I get called into my boss's office, and he says, there's the gentleman who is starting the Catholic radio station in Nevada is looking for someone to run it. His son had planned to run it, and he and his son had made several trips to EWTN in preparation for this. But right at the last moment, his son decided to go into the seminary. And he told his dad, not long before the station was supposed to launch, that he was not going to be around to run it because he had felt called into the seminary. And so he was looking for someone. So he reached out to EWTN, to Mother Angelica, to the people at the radio station, and they suggested me. And that's what the meeting was about. The boss said, look, we've suggested that you go out and run it. How do you feel about that? And I went, what? Nevada? Are we? Nevada, California is kind of where, and Lake Tahoe, California, that kind of area. And I thought, well, I don't know about that. So here this opportunity is in front of me, and I'm driving back home after getting this news that they have put my name forward as someone who could possibly run this station. I don't know anything about running AM, FM radio stations. I'm in shortwave radio, and I'm only on the programming side, so I don't know anything about the technical stuff. So in any case, this offer has been made to me, and EWTN Radio at that point was located on top of a 2,000-foot high miners mountain right outside of Birmingham, Alabama. And in order to get down from the office, you had to go down a dirt road that kind of circled around that mountain, taking you down to 2,000 feet, and then winding roads the rest of the way home as well. So I'm starting off on my way home, and I'm coming down that mountainous road, going around the mountain over and over and over again to make your way down. And as I'm driving down that mountainous road, coming to one of the sharper turns, I sense the Lord say to me, aren't you going to slow down? And I thought, no, I'm going at a pretty good rate of speed. I've made this trip before, you know. And he said, aren't you going to stop and get out of the car and make sure that this road continues on the other side of the mountain that you can't see? And I said, Lord, again, I've been down this road many times. I'm very confident that it continues on the other side that I can't see. In fact, if I had never been down this road before, I would still be confident that it continues on the other side of the mountain that I can't see, and I feel like I'm going at a pretty good pace, so no need to stop, no need to slow down. And he said, you trust this road and those who built it more than you trust me. He said, every time I ask you to come down a road with me, and you get to a place where you can't see to the other side of it, you stop everything. You want to stop. You want to get out of the car. You want to get around and walk and make sure you see the other side of that mountain, the road on the other side of the mountain that you can't see. Again, you trust those who built this road more than you trust me. And
there's a wake-up call.
My goodness, I repented. I wept. I said, Lord, you're right. I trust you. I trust you more than anybody who builds a road. You are a faithful road builder, and I will never doubt you again. I took that job, moved my family out to Nevada, ran EWTN's first affiliated station out there, and I've been doing it ever since. That's been the entirety of my life, and it all came from that one decision, one that they put my name forward, which I will forever be thankful for, Mother and the team there at EWTN Radio, but also the fact that the Lord tapped me on the shoulder and said, look, I got this. I've got a plan for you. Just trust me. And that's really the entirety of my life wrapped up in that story. My resistance, the Lord gently persuading me to go forward, encouraging me, building that trust that he would overcome, and that I could let go of the fear and have absolute trust and faith in him, because he is a faithful road builder, and he truly is.
What a wonderful witness. Yes, how many of us are in that position?
Amen. And those decisions, how they impact your life, that one decision changed everything in my life, and I could not be more thankful.
Now, I know we've got, about 5 minutes left, but I just want to kind of touch a little bit on that, those experiences that you had, especially reaching out in strange cities. Like you've went to Lake Tahoe, you went to Nevada, you walked into unfamiliar territory with complete faith, or maybe with a little trepidation.
Definitely, yeah.
But you eventually end up speaking to large parishes, and giving parish presentations, and really kind of evangelizing Catholic radio to those who are unfamiliar with it in places you've never been before.
Yeah. So I'm running my first radio station, and I sense the Lord said to me, I want to give you something, but if I give it to you, you can't own it. And I said, and he said, do you want it? And I said, yeah, I'll take it. And it literally is this process by which 400 Catholic radio stations were built in the United States of America, called parish presentations, along with a script, by the way. So I came up with this concept of how you're going to do it, how it's going to work. And then I'm scheduled to do my first big parish in Sacramento, California. And I haven't come up with what I'm going to say when I'm there, but I'm invited to speak after all the masses over the course of the weekend. And so I've got everything put together. I know what I want them to fill out. I know the setup and all that. What I don't have is the talk. And so I'm driving from Reno, Nevada to Sacramento, California, and I'm praying. I'm saying, Lord, I got to have a talk. What am I going to say to them once I get there? And so I turn on the recorder and I start talking. And during the course of that drive, I come up with a 6.5 minute presentation during that drive that is still used today in cities all over this country to raise support for Catholic radio stations. It worked fabulously well that weekend. It's worked well every weekend since. I myself spoke in 500 parishes, but this has been presented in thousands of parishes and continues to work to get Catholic radio stations on the air and keep them funded, all because the Lord gave a gift.
Awesome. There's so much more to get to. It's not a real thick book, but man, is it rich.
Yeah.
Very rich book, and we encourage everybody to crack it open and read a story at a time.
And you can get one, if you didn't get one in the mail, you can get one on our website, annunciationradio.com.
Right. It's what, $11.99?
Yep. $11.99, free shipping. And if you did get your book, sign up to come to the event on April 27th. Bring it with you, and I'll sign it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Get to that event.
Faith Over Fear, Lessons from My Life with Mother Angelica. Dave Vacheresse, it's great to just kind of have you as a guest on Faith with Reasons. Yeah. So hopefully you'll be able to come back again.
I'd love it. Love hanging out with you, Mr. Finn.
And why don't we regroup here tomorrow morning, say 7 or 8 o'clock?
Let's do it. That sounds like a plan.